Hello traders, let's have a look at next week's trading sessions, go over the dollar pairs. Last week we had some nice moves during the Bank of England's event and the non-farm payroll, and beginning of the week I will be looking for follow-ups. And then on Tuesday we got the bank decision, the interest rate decision from Royal Bank of Australia, which will have most likely an impact on the Australian dollar. Short term, I think we need to finish this bullish momentum in the dollar pairs. Once again, this is one unique wave, and we're extending once again. If we go to the 4-hour time frame, we saw this corrective structure lower. During the non-farm payroll, we saw the spike lower and the reversal higher. It was a perfect buy opportunity, or better yet, a sell opportunity in different pairs. However, what does it mean short term? If we zoom out, we're likely going to take out this high, which is slightly above the 95. That would be ideal, and then something like this would happen, and the reversal is what I'm interested in, because the reversal is most likely going to be significant. That's going to be something correcting this whole move here, and therefore is my focus. But once again, I expect some bullish momentum in the dollar to take a little longer, at least short term take out this high, and well, it can extend of course as long as it wants, but it has to come back sooner or later, and it has to at least correct this whole move here before the dollar is ready to continue higher or anything else. The other scenario is that this is a correction altogether and we're gonna make significant lows, but that's something for later. If we're in the short, we mentioned correctly, we will be in that trade, and the structure will tell whether we're gonna continue higher or whether we're gonna reverse lower. For now, short term, long opportunity, and then I'm looking for the reversal. The dollar yen, great example when it comes to the same thing, very comparable, one unique wave, clearly extending higher, definitely has potential to go higher, but not by means of one wave, and that's what we see right now. We see one wave which needs to correct, or it actually might reverse and make a new low. My favorite scenario for short term is a correction in the dollar pairs and then continuation higher, which means the dollar yen should correct, and I believe it needs to come back all the way to 112 to say the least, test these lows here, not because of these lows but because of structures telling me that that's very likely, which will present a nice risk reward for a sell opportunity. And once this is over, we have to determine whether this move here is going to be corrective, meaning bullish momentum is going to continue, or whether this is impulsive, making some kind of a flag and then continue lower. If we look at the 4-hour time frame, this is very comparable to Linus. I like to see this high taken out, because that would be ideal. That gives us the opportunity for a clean sell setup. If that's not gonna happen, then this might be the first leg, and then we're gonna get a very corrective structure lower, which means that the continuation lower, if we don't take out the high, might be messy. It means many overlaps. So that's more like a sell and hold. If you got a trade plan for them, then fine. Those are the best ways to trade a corrective structure, because my forecast is that if this is the high here, that we're not going to see a clean move lower, by means of a clear ABC pattern. Then most likely we're going to make some kind of corrective combinations. So let me recap that. You want to see a little push higher, and then the reversal. This push high can extend, of course. It's not a guarantee it's only going for a certain amount of pips. We have to see what's going to be next. I think it's going to be short-lived, but in any case, this is the move I want to look for. Well, it would be ideal if that's a clean move by means of an impulse down, a flag, and another impulse. That is ideal. That's every one of us should be able to trade that, because it's very clear. However, we don't see that very often. Textbook examples are pretty much only available in textbooks, not in the real market. So let structure tell you what to do. And if we go to the 1-hour time frame, we zoom in. Well, this is why I said to my traders during the non-farm payroll, the dollar is not ready yet. This is simply not something you want to see for a bearish reversal. So I think this is actually something, well, it could be a contracting flat, something like this. Doesn't really matter. That it's corrective, that's for sure. And I like to see a little push higher, something something like this, and then come down. I realize that is a scenario that's not going to happen. Like I said, in that case, you need to see a clear correction here on the 1 hour time frame. I would not suggest it a 15-minute because they will be doing low volume market opening. But if this starts to consolidate, you can start looking for sells. But just keep in mind, you need to manage that on lower time frames. And it might be harder because it might not be a clean move. The reason for that is that I don't consider this to be a clear impulsive wave. Well, it might be impulsive, but not a motive wave. And the ideal setup is simply after a new high. So it's either or, but you need to wait for confirmation that the top is in place, which means you need to see some kind of an impulse, correction, continuation. Euro dollar, still looking for the 14.50-15 area. Last week we called it, said like this is not over, we're gonna make a flag and then sell. Well, I already told in last video, I don't just trade structure. I'm lucky enough to have experience by professional investment banks and hedge funds, so I have some market dynamic tools that I use, which means we were able to sell the 1690 level. Well, there are people that say you can't do that. Well, you can do it as long as you know what to look at, and as long as you know how to manage your risk. So we had a perfect sell. That one is at break even, because I was targeting this correction to be over, and I told my traders, keep in mind that the non-farm payroll probably is going to spike up and then reverse. And well, that's actually exactly what we saw. If you lose this trend line, you see that we're breaking lower. So the conservative trade will be some kind of a flag here and then sell again. That would be my second sell. However, if this decides to make a more complex correction, comes back up, well then I'm protected by my stop at break even, and I simply will look for a different sell up here, because I definitely consider this to be corrective, which means that if this starts to continue higher, it will still be corrective. But I think that this might be the start of the continuation lower, which gives the time to the dollar index to extend a little higher, gives time to the dollar yen to extend a little higher. There's a lot of assumptions that I make right now, but the thing is, if that's happening, if that's gonna happen, then we have all kind of perfect setups to trade to reversal. So that's the scenario I'm looking for. If that's gonna happen, I will take full advantage of it. In the meantime, I will manage my euro dollar trade, which means look whether this is gonna consolidate, which should be a 1 hour consolidation. If that's the case, I will sell again. Which means I will have to sell positions, but for those that are not in the trade yet, that's a perfect valid setup, because the consolidation here will confirm that this impulse is for real, which most likely confirms that this correction is over as well. Dollar CAD, well, this yellow box was a target zone for the bullish move, the minimum move, but we moved way further by means of one unique wave, which I consider to be 3 waves. Whether this is everything or just something like A, a B, and a C, or however you want to label it, I don't really care. But this is one unique wave, which means that you look for significant correction of this wave. That is not confirmed over, which means the correction is not confirmed over. Which means that if we continue higher from here, we're still in one unique wave, which is simply extending. So what does that mean? 4 hour time frame, very clear I guess, 1, 2, and this looks like 3. Well, several things are possible right now. What I will be looking for is this, let me go to the 1 hour time frame, a little bit clearer, for this to settle somewhat. This itself is nothing. That's not a minor impulse. Could be a strong move, but according to how I look at the market, this is not enough to consider an impulse, which means this is not enough to say the bottom is in place. I easily see this happen, something like this, can push lower and then make a significant correction. That would be nice. Presenting a sell opportunity, making this some kind of a bigger corrective leg than some kind of a sideways B move or X or whatever, and then a C or continuation of some kind of lower. The other Possibility is of course that this drills a little lower or higher, it doesn't really matter, push up higher, gives us a nice corrective structure. Well, if that's the case, the sell might present itself a little sooner. We have clear rules to determine when this is corrective and when it's over, because one of the most made mistakes is that people trade continuation too soon. In other words, the correction is not over. You need clear guidelines for that, and that's why I say right now this is nothing. So I let it mature. The bigger picture is really clear to me. So we either make some significant correction here and continue higher, or this is just the first part of a bigger corrective structure. In any case, right now I stay aside. If this decides to do something that I don't see happening right now and spike up, and that gives me the impulse, then no stress. I simply wait for something like a corrective structure, confirm that it's for real, and I trade the continuation. It's either presenting what I want to see, or I don't waste my time trading something that's not less than ideal. Dollar Swiss, extends higher, very comparable to the dollar index and dollar yen for that matter, in terms of how the angle and the shape of the current wave, because it's still one unique wave. 4 hour time frame, well, we saw a clear 3-year structure here, and now we trail higher. I think this high taken out would actually be ideal, but we might see a little bit of a bigger corrective structure. It could either be something like this, but it could also do something like that, and come back down once again. But same as the other dollar index and dollar yen, you like to see it push up and take out this high, because that might present a clean sell opportunity. What I mean by that, same thing, if it doesn't happen, this can easily start correcting and correct this whole move, but that means that the correction will not be as clear as possible. And of course what we all like to see is some kind of a previous move confirmed by a nice flag and then sell the continuation. Unfortunately, that's not how the market works very often. Waves alternate, not all waves are as clear as the others and you wish for. So therefore I'm sharing my bias, definitely looking for at least a corrective structure of this move altogether, ideally from a little higher. And if this reverses altogether along with the dollar yen and dollar index, for example, well, then the sell is still very profitable, but we need to correct this pair sooner or later, and I think this week might be the week where the correction starts. But I suggest to keep an eye on the euro dollar, for example. That pair is pretty clear right now, especially if that continues its move lower. That's probably going to mean that the rest of the dollar might move in favor of the dollar as well. So use one as an example or leading indicator for the others. Aussie dollar, well, we're looking at this 3-way structure on a daily time frame, but those who understand structure, they also know that if you look further back in time, that we're not dealing with a correction of the first impulse, and if you go to higher time frames, you see that there are not many impulses followed up by another impulse. So looking at a weekly time frame and identifying an impulse and then expecting a continuation is not very successful. Same for the daily. I'm not saying this move cannot take out the whole low, definitely can, but it is easily possible that this is going to take way longer, for example, and this is not the projection of what I expect price to do. I'm just answering a question that a lot of people assume that selling the Aussie dollar is all they need to do. It's fine if you expect that to happen, that's fine, but at least apply your rules so you rationalize why you sell, where you take your profit, and where you take your losses, or at least when you start managing your position instead of taking profit. So I think it's definitely possible that this comes down, but I'm not convinced it's going to happen now. So what I mean by that is, of course, we have the Royal Bank of Australia later this week that might start moving this pair. Every central banker wants its currency lower at the moment. We called the technicals and we did that pretty well. We started on the 1 hour time frame and we said we want to see price up here. I think we called 77, 77.20 or something like that. That's in the last video, but definitely 77. said look for a buy for the continuation, and that would be make the minimum requirements for a continuation lower. So this was the three-wave structure, and the buy was successful, which means the correction has met the minimum requirements, which means you should keep an eye on the continuation lower. Well, we saw that continuation starting, so if you draw this trend line, for example, we broke lower. Well, might not always be the easiest one, but if this consolidates, you definitely have a sell. Use the daily in your advantage. See whether you're going to take it down to the 76, maybe 75, 75.50 would be my next target. Ignore this trend line, because that would assume that this is one structure, higher, sideways, higher, and then another sideways. That's the only structure that tells you that the trend line is relevant. And that's the problem with trend lines. Usually they're drawn, but they mix up the fractal systems. So if you draw this trend line, you're basically saying that you either expect this or this, I guess, which means you need a consolidation. Well, I would say ignore that. See whether this comes lower because of the price is showing us a continuation bearish. The minimum requirement is this low taken out, and then you simply manage it. And then during the news event, the rates decision in Australia, we have to determine whether this is clearly being oversold. That means a structure of lower degree, that's 1 hour and 4 hour time frame. That means we're most likely going to continue higher, or whether we consolidating up to that event and we might see a short opportunity. But it's definitely going to be an interesting event, because if you zoom out and you look at this whole structure, we're basically in the middle of nowhere. I would say 1/3 and 2/3, which means there's a lot of distance to cover without invalidating anything here. So take it step by step. Short term, I'm looking for the continuation lower. Pound dollar, very clear, I guess. We all see this as corrective. However, same thing, if the dollar index suggests that it needs to correct, then we have to manage our expectations as well. I'm not entirely convinced that this high is the high for the whole correction. I definitely see it very possible this is a B, and a C lower, and then we come back up and then make the whole move. But that's too far away for now, not really relevant. We were looking for this correction to end and then a continuation lower, which should give us a follow-up of this move here. And then by managing it, we will determine whether we go lower or whether we're going to continue higher once again. 4 hour time frame. Well, the unfortunate thing was that we didn't take out this high. That would be the ideal sell setup for the Bank of England event, that it was going down. That was pretty clear. So I have to take it a little lower. I sold it around the 132.30 area. That one is a break even, because I like this to be some kind of a contracting flat, which means it's going to consolidate now. If that's true, that means it's confirmation of contracting flat. I'm going to sell it again towards the 128. I keep my position, but I bring it at break even as well, because like we forecasted the euro pound to the pip, although it was complex, we told each other, we told in a group, we're going to take out the low and then reverse bullish again. And that can happen here as well. This could be an A, for example, a B, and a C. I don't think that's the case, but it's a possibility. And since it's a possibility, and you have this distance to cover by means of a stop in terms of this whole structure, you need some kind of consolidation here to confirm it, and that will either present a new sell for those who are already short, or it will be present a sell for those who are not already short. Then real quick, euro pound. Here we go. This is what we were talking about. This move here, we said that's corrective, and then if you look at a 4 hour time frame, we saw this and we said that is a corrective move. So this can definitely go down, but we don't want to sell something that's not ideal, because that means it's probably not ready. And our rules tell us when something is ready, and if the rules are not being met, we're using that in the trade, and that's when the real fun starts, because that's when the early entries start. They get kicked out and we pick up the pieces. That's all comes about understanding structure. So forecasting structure is not something you should take as a guarantee. You need to have the rules. So this videos is for the bias. As you can see, most of the bias are correct. If I call levels, they're pretty more than 90% of the time met, because I only count levels when I have all the variables in my favor. That was not the case for euro pound, so we stay aside. But I think this is some kind of a B and a C. So ideally this settles, pushes up once again, and otherwise this makes a flag, and then we sell it again, because it can of course come short. Bigger picture, nothing changes. I'm looking for this continuation, but I like to have an ideal setup, so my risk reward can be as high as 20-1. Well, that was not the case, but it's definitely possible that it becomes the case if this does more like this. I like to see takeout at this high before it comes down, but we'll see. If it decides to go lower right now, that's fine as well. We need some kind of a flag pattern here, and then I'm looking for the continuation down as well. It's an if-then scenario at all time.